Hello, welcome to the first episode of the Big East Hoops 2018 video/podcast uploads. Today I'll be discussing my quarter season awards as well as the Jahvon Quinerly situation at Villanova and the Quad A Green transfer situation. First thing I'll discuss is my player of the year pick as of now. Preseason I had selected Eric Paschall from Villanova because I expected a breakout year from him, he being the center of the offense this year, with key stars Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, and Dante DiVincenzo graduating, as well as Amari Spellman. But as of now, I think the player of the year will be Shamorie Ponds, point guard from St. John's. Ponds is averaging 21 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists a game for the 9-0 St. John's. He played very well last year, and I was honestly quite surprised that he didn't test the NBA waters just to get a feel as to where he would go in the draft, but it seems to be paying off for him this year. So he is arguably one of the top 4 players in his conference, right alongside Marcus Howard of Marquette, Myles Powell of Seton Hall, and Max Struss of DePaul. And you could honestly put Eric Paschall in that group and call it a 5, but I don't think so at this point. My next pick is for Coach of the Year. Preseason, I had selected Jay Wright of Villanova, the reigning national champions. They've won 2 of the last 3, so I expected something big to come out of them this year. But a couple early losses, including a 27-point loss at home to to Michigan, and a loss to Furman at home, and a loss to Penn at the Palestra, which is somewhat home game, but it's still Penn's arena. But as of now, my pick is Chris Mullin. Chris Mullin, former Golden State Warrior, former NBA All-Star, is the coach of St. John's. Mullin has led the Johnnies to a 9-0 start before league play. They've been tested against tough schools like Rutgers, VCU, and Cal. Coach Mullin also has one of the toughest schedules left for the rest of the year. They play Villanova twice, Marquette twice, and they play Duke, who has a 3-headed monster of R.J. Barrett, Zion Williamson, and Cam Reddish. I think that St. John's can definitely pull off an upset in there. As we saw, Seton Hall beat Kentucky, and nobody thought that was going to happen. But I think St. John's is perfectly capable of knocking off Duke. My next pick is for Newcomer of the Year, so Freshman of the Year. Preseason, I'd selected Jahvon Quinerly of Villanova, but I don't even think Jahvon Quinerly will be at Villanova by the end of the year. But now I think it will be A.J. Reeves of Providence. A.J. Reeves is averaging 14 points and 3 rebounds for the Friars. He's becoming a key role player right alongside David Duke Jr., the point guard. He posted 24 points and 3 rebounds in a huge win at Boston College. I expect to see a lot of promise from A.J. as the years come on. I think he'll lead Providence, maybe develop a nice team there. But I think he's a very talented player and could potentially run the Big East at one point. My next pick is for Conference Champion. Preseason, I had selected Villanova, and my pick is still Villanova as of now. And my pick simply hasn't changed because of strength and schedule. Villanova doesn't have a very tough schedule to finish the year compared to the other teams in their conference. I know St. John's has to play Villanova twice, Marquette twice, and Duke. Villanova has to play UConn, and then it's league play from there on out. So the toughest team they'll play from there is either Marquette or St. John's. And I think Villanova, if they figure out what's going on within their program, could definitely run the Big East. The only issue I see with Villanova and the only way that they could potentially not win the Big East is if they continue this trend of playing down the teams they play against. For example, in the Penn game, I think that Villanova could have easily blown Penn out of the water if they had not fallen down 13 points so early in the game. 17-4 was when Penn led by the most. But I think they battled back because they figured out they were playing against Penn, who's a team that is nowhere near the caliber of Villanova. But don't take any credit away from Penn. They're a very talented basketball team. Made the tournament last year. Almost upset number 1 Kansas in the tournament. But I still think Villanova playing down to Furman at home, playing down to Penn, and their other loss was a 27-point loss to Michigan, which should have lit a fire under them, and they shouldn't be losing to teams like Penn and Furman. And I think that Villanova will simply win the Big East because their schedule sucks, for lack of better words. Now I'll be discussing the Jahvon Quinerly situation at Villanova. Some of you may know after their loss to Penn, Jahvon Quinerly posted something on his Instagram story about Villanova being his second choice when it came to his recruitment. And this means that, well, if he followed his recruitment, you would have known that he originally had his schools narrowed down to two, Villanova and Arizona, and then committed to Arizona. And when the FBI scandal stuff arose because of DeAndre Ayton and Seth Miller at Arizona, he decommitted from Arizona along with Sharif O'Neal decommitting from Arizona. And he picked Villanova because it was the other team that he had on his list, even though he reopened his recruitment. What he posted on his Instagram story specifically said, in quotes, was my second choice for a reason. And this is basically saying that Villanova was his second choice because he knew he would not get the playing time he would at Arizona. He's extremely frustrated with that because he only played 1 minute in the game against Penn. Now remember, Javon Cornerly was the number 3 ranked point guard in his class behind Trey Jones of Duke and Darius Garland of Vanderbilt. And he was a McDonald's All-American as well as a top 25-star recruit. He was ranked the number 1 point guard in his class by 24/7 Sports. So as you can imagine, this would be very frustrating to be in Javon's spot. But as we know through the Jay Wright system, point guards don't always play all the way at first. As we saw with Jalen Brunson didn't really get any time till their first national championship run when he finally figured out the system. Arcidiacono didn't get much time until his sophomore year. Colin Gillespie isn't getting much time until this year. Phil Booth didn't even get much time until his junior year. I mean, Jay Wright is notorious for holding point guards out until they have completely figured out the system and know how to run it, which is, in theory, a smart thing. Because if you're not going to put a point guard on the court that knows how to run the offense, what is the point in putting a point guard on the court? You could have a 2 guard like Cole Swider, who is perfectly comfortable in the offense, run it from the point instead of putting Javon in, who doesn't know the offense or maybe isn't as big of a leader. I think that Javon will end up transferring from Villanova simply because he has discredited the university and ripped the university too much to stay there. He also faked his Instagram being hacked to cover up for the Instagram story where he talked about Villanova. He then deleted his Instagram account when people discovered the hack, or the fake hack, and put out an apology saying that he is very sorry for what he did and apologized to Coach Wright and his fellow players for basically taking away from what the Villanova family has developed. But I still think he won't end up at Villanova at the end of the year. I think he may end up transferring to a more local school such as Temple or maybe LaSalle, which is another local Philadelphia school. But then again, there's the other option that he will transfer to Arizona and become the man at Arizona because they currently do not have a point guard that is of the McDonald's All-American caliber like Javon is. Now, the next topic I'll be getting into is the Quade Green transfer from Kentucky. Quade is a Philadelphia native who went to Newman Goretti High School right outside of Philadelphia. And he was also just like Javon, a 5-star point guard, McDonald's All-American, and he went to Kentucky. This is his sophomore year at Kentucky. Things didn't exactly pan out the way he wanted him to. He wasn't the starter last year, saw limited minutes last year, and had his job taken away from him by what should be a high school senior in Ashton Hagans, who reclassified into the class of 2018 to get to Kentucky a year early and is now the starting point guard. Quade, I don't think he's anywhere near the level of Javon where he's upset with the university. He has said multiple times that he loves what Coach Cal is doing. He loves Kentucky. It just wasn't the right fit for him. He has reopened his recruitment, and some of the schools he had on his list were Providence and Villanova, which are 2 Big East competitors. I personally think he'll either end up at Washington or Villanova. I think Washington because he's very close friends with Markelle Fultz, who attended the University of Washington, and I've been told that the 2 of them have spoken about this multiple times leading up to Quade Green announcing his transfer. I think he may end up at Washington where he will be the primary ball handler and the primary offensive option, where he can improve his draft stock just like Markelle did. I think he may end up at Villanova because it's home. I mean, Villanova is in the city of Philadelphia. He would come home. He would be an immediate impact. But I'm leaning more towards Washington than Villanova because Villanova, as Quade Green has shown, is jam-packed at point guard, and that's where he plays. He plays point guard and they have Colin Gillespie, Phil Booth, and Javon Quinterly all lined up to play point guard. But who knows? He may end up going there. Javon may end up leaving. For all we know, they may end up switching schools. But I don't see any chance of him going to Providence. Maybe Temple would be another choice, which is another Philadelphia school close to Newman Grady High School. I think Temple maybe because it's home, and he would absolutely be the man in that program. He would have the ball every possession. He'd be taking a lot of shots. And that's what you need to do to improve your draft stock to get to the next level. I think Quade Green sees that in Temple and in Washington, not so much in Villanova, maybe in Providence, but I don't know. I have no clue where he's going. I'm not in a speaking position with Quade Green as to where I'd be able to find that out. But on the other hand, he could end up going somewhere like North Carolina or Duke, where he'd be part of a national title run and get the national title, and then either go to the draft or transfer to a smaller school where he'll be able to get a lot of the shots and get more playing time and be the man to run the offense. That's going to wrap it up for the first Big East Hoops 2018 podcast. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Big East Hoops 2018. Make sure to like and subscribe. See you next week.